And in the days of growing season, we're here. Of course, I'm here each and every week at 7 o'clock on Sundays to help you get your garden into the groove and get you growing a little bit better. If you've never been here before and you're joining me for the first time, you're wondering, who the heck is this guy? Well, this guy is Virginie, aka Frankie Flowers, garden expert, Canadian garden expert, with a lifetime of experience in terms of gardening, four-time best-selling garden author, a lifelong gardener, and also somebody who's worked in the gardening industry for his entire life. My family has two garden centers, one in Bradford, one in Barrie, both called Bradford Greenhouses Garden Gallery. So I'm here along with the community of gardeners to help you get your garden better, to kind of maybe fuel your desire to get out there and to get growing. Maybe you have some questions to answer, like what's bugging you in your garden, because now the temperatures have become warmer, our plantings have been done. Now is the time when we're going to start to see some nasty little pests that are trying to get into our gardens and really not help us get growing whatsoever. So that's the reason why I'm here. If you have any questions, please put them in the comments below. I want to answer those questions for you. And if I can't get to answering those questions, what happens is the viewers that are on here will also help. The community, that is, will also help and answer those questions. We got Lacey who's saying a good evening. Good evening to Lacey as well. You can see it. That's the way to become involved. You just pop a comment down and presto, you're there. Okay. I've had a great week, by the way. I got all my veggies that are planted right now. I'm taking a look in the garden right now. I have lettuce, zucchini, tomatoes, peppers, parsley, chives. I have mint. I have rosemary. I have a lot of things that are getting growing in my garden. So now that they're planted, now what I have to be aware of and be really concerned about is some of the bugs and slugs that could be out there in the garden and actually in nature. That's just the one thing about nature, is that as we grow, we're actually going to encounter some different challenges along the way. A reminder, gardening is a journey that's out there, and we always got to just kind of take that journey in stride and be very aware of what's happening. There's Matthew Amos. So first thing that's really important now that you have your gardens planted is that you always take the time to smell the roses. What I mean by taking the time to smell the roses is take not only the time to go out and enjoy your plantings, but take a close look at your plantings and see what's on them. Let's say, for instance, we were to go take a look at our peony plants right now that are almost in bloom. And in some areas in the province of Ontario and across the country, perhaps they are in bloom. But when we look at them, we see an ant that may be on that plant. Well, that ant is actually walking on top of the bud of that peony, because generally there's a little bit of nectar that's there. They actually help that plant open up its bloom as well, the peony that is. And they may even be there because there might even be some aphids that are there. If you see sometimes ants on plants, they're just in behind the aphid that's eating the nectar. So a lot of the times what we need to do is just be aware. So ants on a peony, totally fine. Nothing to be concerned of. But let's say that we go out there and we encounter that we do have some insects that are on our plants. I got to give a shout out to my good friend, Tanya. I got to let Tanya know as well. Happy growing as well. Tanya, I got the sample boxes of the new plants from Ball. Excited. 2024, 2025 trials. So right now, I got a bunch of ones that I just planted the other day. Tanya is one of the people that helped me do that. So I'm trialing some new ageratums, new agellonias, some new geraniums. Super excited about that. We got high from Crystal as well. So a little bit back. So if we see an insect on our plants, first and foremost, we need to figure out what is that insect, what is it doing, and is it causing harm? And then how do we control it if it is causing harm? The key is if you're going out to use anything that you're using to control anything in the garden, I can't stress more that what you need to do is really take a look at if they are Health Canada approved, that is. So this is a little bit of the Government of Canada. This is the Health Canada page where it's Health Canada's pesticide compliance program, which is responsible for making sure that the types of materials that you're using on your gardens are safe. So for instance, that's one thing, making sure they're Health Canada approved. Number two is in the province of Ontario. Since 2009, we've had a pesticide ban. So that pesticide ban has been really limiting the use of chemical insecticides and pesticides out there on our properties. And what you can see is the list of active ingredients authorized for cosmetic use. There's borax, we have corn gluten meal, we have soaps and sulfurs. But banned cosmetic use, for instance, is things like 2,4-D, diazinon, and others. So the key is to make sure that anytime that you're going out and you're thinking about how do I take care of said insect, said weed, said challenge, is that you're using things that are safe for you. And right now, when we go in the world of buying things online, often the products that you can buy online are not Health Canada approved, they're not inspected, and they can cause more harm than help. So, my caution today, as we're getting into bug season, is to really make sure that you are getting materials that are Health Canada approved so that you can be nice and safe out there. Clay, my good buddy Clay, hey, how you doing, bud? Hi there. We got Michelle giving a shout out tonight as well. Windsor says hello. We got Danielle. Danielle, hi, Frankie. I have 2 begonias on my porch. Begonia. But I'm worried they aren't thriving. Water them every day. They just don't seem to look as nice when I bought them home. Any tips for begonia care? So there's several different varieties of begonias. For instance, there's the Whopper begonia. There's Dragon Wings begonia. Those guys there are pretty easy. There are Rieger begonias. There are tuberous begonias. There's Rex begonias. There's wax begonias. There's a whole lot of begonias that are out there. A lot of the times when a potted plant is not thriving, and if you're watering every day, is there drainage in that container? If that plant pot has no drainage, and maybe you didn't pot in potting soil, then it's sitting too wet too long, and that can be the harm. So either drilling holes in the base or making sure that you replant them in potting soil, key. Most begonias will thrive in parts shade to part sun, that is to shade, but some begonias will thrive in sun. So what begonia variety do you have, and does it need sun or shade? The other part too is when you go to the garden center, at your garden center, you're going to find that those plants look fantastic, and then you bring them home, and after a bunch of waterings in a few weeks, all of a sudden they don't look as vigorous because they're not having any plant food. So if it's in a potting soil, make sure you do feed that plant. So you can use a slow release fertilizer for that. There are several different ones that are out on the marketplace, and just make sure that you're continue to feed as well. We got my good friend Tracy Reynolds, florist extraordinaire. Hi, Sunday. Happy Sunday, that is, Frank. Hope you had a wonderful weekend. Got some much needed rest for a big week coming up. Spent the day at the lake, mildly sun-kissed and having a wee glass of Chardonnay. Nothing like a glass of Chardonnay. Michelle is asking a question. Love Chardonnay as well. When I deadhead my snowball flower, how far do I go to the stem? So when the snowball ore is done, all we're really doing is removing that flower stem and cutting it right to where, so let's say that this is the flower stem, like this, and then these are 2 branches that are bracketing out. We're just removing this flower stem and leaving those 2 branches so that they can bracket out and fill in that space. So that's generally the rule of thumb for anything. And a reminder, deadheading is key. If we have any annuals that are out there that the flowers are done, like geraniums, continue to deadhead a geranium. Dahlia is another example of that as well. Deadheading removes the spent flower and puts more energy back to the plant, which then will help the plant grow a little bit better as well. We got Vicky. Hey, Vicky. I received a potted hydrangea, which I've kept in my house. Once the blooms die, what do I do with the plant? So it depends on which variety of potted hydrangea, and is that variety of potted hydrangea one that can survive winter? If it is, it's going to do best in the ground, planted in a garden, outdoors. A lot of the large leaf hydrangeas that are the potted hydrangeas bloom on this year's growth, so we don't want to really prune them in fall or in spring. Often, a lot of the times, they're marginally hardy, so they'll put a lot of foliage out. But in order for that plant to rebloom, it has to go in through a dormancy period. So it has to go in through a winter period, a period of shorter daylight hours, chillier conditions before it can actually set its buds to bloom. That's why it's best planted in the garden outdoors, so you can enjoy it that way. That's there. We have Kim. Hi, Kim. Hello from Innisfil to Kim Barringer. I think that's a family friend of mine as well. Heather. Hi, Frankie. Gorgeous garden day here in London, Ontario. Can't agree more. My wisterias is finished being blooming. Beautiful. Wisterias are amazing. Often take up to 7 years before they will bloom. A very aggressive vine. So a lot of the times people say they want them, but they can take over areas. So you got to keep them in check. We cut off spent flowers and now need to know the best fertilizer. Google contradictions. Thanks muchly. So with a wisteria, you're not really wanting anything that's too high in the first number. We don't want to promote more growth with that. We want something that's going to be a higher middle to end number. The key with wisteria, even if you just use a general purpose fertilizer, you'll be fine. The key with wisteria is when you get those side shoots that go, we're always restricting growth of those side shoots. So we're continuing to prune even after the bloom, that we're restricting some of those side shoot growth so that we can put more energy into the plant and that it can actually put more energy so it can have bloom production for next year. We got Liz Johnson, which is saying happy Sunday. Liz, happy Sunday to you. We got Jackie. Hi, Jackie. I wonder how your day is. I wonder how your weekend was, Jackie. Hi, Frankie. I didn't cut the dead lilacs from last year. Should I cut them off now? It still has not bloomed this year. Thank you. So the reason why lilac won't bloom, improper pruning could be a case, but let's say that you actually had that lilac planted in an area, and now some of the trees in that area, shade trees, maples, let's say they're oaks, let's say they're lindens, who knows, have now grown and matured and now are taking and restricting the amount of sunlight that lilac is getting. So if that lilac is not getting a lot of afternoon sun, maybe that's the reason why it's not blooming. Would I prune now? Yes, because lilacs right now are just finishing their bloom period in many places across Southern Ontario. Best time to prune a lilac is after bloom. Best way after pruning it overall by about a third, and you can even prune up to a half of its growth, is to remove any dead wood. But once again, if it's not receiving enough light, it will not bloom regardless of when you prune or how you prune. We get Cheryl, or we have Cheryl. Hello, Frankie from Parrish. Should I remove the dead flowers off on poppies? Yes, yeah. You want to remove those stems back. Poppies, of course, are beautiful. Not the longest bloom period that we have. So we're going to remove that flower stem off. We're going to have the foliage that's there. Often you may find the foliage may get a white little substance on it, and that's a powdery mildew. If it does get a powdery mildew and the foliage starts to die back, I just cut the foliage off. But really important for you to wipe your shears after with a little bit of light bleach so we don't spread that powdery mildew to other places. So powdery mildew is a disease. So if we were to treat a disease, we use a fungicide. So fungicides are those that we treat for diseases, and there are some Health Canada approved fungicides that are sulfur, mostly made with sulfur. Herbicides, for instance, are those types of products that you find that will take care of weeds or plants. Herbicide is something that will control and or kill some different types of plants that are out there. So a non-selective herbicide is one that actually can control and select what it's going to control, right? Can figure out. Corn gluten, for instance, that's the product that actually coats weed seeds and prevents the germination of weed seeds. So it's selective in a way. Non-selective herbicides are those that will kill or control whatever they contact. And an example of that could even be a higher strength vinegar or some other products that are on the market as well that are herbicides. Insecticides are what take care of insects. And then those would be things like some of the dish soaps and soapy waters that we have out there. And some of those insecticides also could even be horticultural oils that set to smother and or suffocate many insects that are out there. So there's a little lesson on some of those if you want to know what those words mean. Tracy is replying to Jackie. If it hasn't bloomed yet, it probably won't. I'd cut it back and let Frank confirm. And there we go. We know that we did that as well. Good evening, Frankie. I have a question. Cousin has poison ivy in her garden. So I had a friend just last week get poison ivy everywhere, and I've had it everywhere as well. Just before we go on further with the question, with poison ivy, if you were ever to go and somebody's like, oh, to control it, I want to burn it. Even if you burn poison ivy, the active ingredient that caused the allergic reaction can go airborne. You can breathe it in, and it actually could swell up your lungs and cause a ton of problems. The plant is coming through the fence that you share with their annoying neighbor. Can they get rid of the plant? So what you're going to do is you're going to go to your local garden center, and you're going to go to either your local home improvement store. There will be some products available for poison ivy, which are herbicides that are a little bit better in terms of their strength, but they will be locked up. So you need to talk to your garden center, and they will actually be behind a cage. They should be, if properly done, behind a cage. And it will be a non-selective herbicide that they will spray on that 3 leaves of 3, let them be 4 or more. You can dance some more. But you want to be very careful whenever you're spraying something like that, like a poison ivy control, because it will actually kill any other plants in the area. So when you're spraying, if you're spraying just the poison ivy, you want to put a piece of cardboard in between that poison ivy and spray towards the cardboard. That way any overspray will hit the cardboard and won't spray and hit any other plants that are there. So I hope that helps you. We got Jen Gee. Happy Sunday. How often and what should we be using to fertilize our outer newly planted Norway spruce and our umbrella catalpas? Thank you. Have a great week. And umbrella catalpas are great. So because they're newly planted, we want to use a transplant fertilizer. So you've heard me refer to before quick start fertilizers. So we want to use a fertilizer that's going to focus that plant more so on root system versus overall upper growth and or flower production or foliage. So we're looking for a transplant fertilizer, and we're watering these Norway spruce and we're watering that umbrella catalpa deeply. So we're soaking them and infrequently. So we're watering them maybe every other or every third day if it doesn't rain, and we're soaking them so that way they get good moisture. But if they look and or appear dry, you may even water at a greater frequency, but don't lightly water. Soak the area so the roots will stay down deep where the water is, and they'll be in better health and condition for you there. Matthew Amos, my buddy, always asks questions about movies. Have you seen any new movies? And I watched Madame Web with my dad today and the Garfield movie. Amazing, buddy. I actually watched The Gentleman. It's an older movie with Matthew McConaughey. I'm a big fan of Matthew McConaughey. It was a good movie, by the way. We got T, just simply T. That's an easy name to spell. Hi, Frank. Love your books and all your info you share. I recently dug out my garden and will be starting one above ground in containers. I get sunlight in my backyard from sunrise until about 5 in the afternoon. When it crosses over, any advice for a successful garden? Well, because you're getting it during those periods of time, you are in full sun. If you're doing containers, my recommendation is for you to do fewer larger containers than a bunch of little containers. The reason why larger containers I feel are better, they're less work because they don't dry out as fast. You want to select plants that are for full sun. So geraniums, we were just talking about geraniums, fantastic. Calibracholas, if you're looking for annual color. Some perennials will actually overwinter in a container. Some of the autumn joy sedums will overwinter in a container. Mint should always be planted in a container because if not, it'll spread into the garden. So those are just some suggestions. If you're growing in containers, make sure those pots have drainage, either holes in the base or you're creating an area where that plant can sit out of water. Use potting soil, not too heavy of a mix because it'll actually drown out because they'll sit too wet too long. For some larger containers, though, you can mix a little bit of a high-quality garden soil in with your potting soil just to heavy up that mix a little bit so they won't dry out fast as well. So there's some different things, but drainage is really important, and select full sun plants and you'll be off to the races. We got Sherry. Hi, Frankie from Brantford. Beautiful place. Should I do anything with my clematis after it flowers, or clematis? So if it's spring blooming, which would be the species variety, which is if it's already finished its bloom period, that would be it. We're pruning. So after it finishes its bloom, we're just going to give it a nice little cut back by about a third, remove any of those spent flowers. If by chance it's Nellie Moser, Jack Manny, some of those later summer blooming ones, we're going to be pruning those later fall into winter. And really what we can do is just prune them back so that if we had any heavy snowfalls, that it wouldn't bend them over or catch them and bend that trellis down. So we're just going to cut them tighter to the trellis, and then in the spring, remove any dead wood. But a reminder, the species clematis, the ones that are spring blooming, we're pruning them after bloom and only going to give them a light pruning in the fall because they take a full season to develop their bloom. So we do not prune those. If not, we would not get spring bloom. Patty. Hi, Frankie. I have a pink and white begonia out front of my back door, and the pink one flowers. The white one only has one flower. Why? So even though pink one flowers and the white one only has one flower, why? So there could be several reasons. One reason is the type of shock at planting. So sometimes when we're planting, like we can be pretty rough with a plant when we're planting. So what we're doing is when we take the pot off of any container, we want to loosely kind of loosen the roots with our hands. Then we want to pot it in a good soil so that those roots start to spread out. But let's say that pot smacked down, boom. That causes a little bit of shock and or stress on that plant. So that can be one reason. Another reason is maybe it just sat too wet too long. Sometimes certain varieties of begonias or even plants will be better than others. For instance, I feel the purple wave petunia still beats any other wave petunia in the series, and it was the first variety as for bloom power and bloom performance. So those are just a couple of reasons that could happen there. It could just be that the pink is a stronger begonia versus the white. Be great to know which begonia they are. If I'm going to guess, it's a Rieger begonia. We got, because with Rieger begonias, the white tends not to be as much bloom power as some of the colors that are out there. Yvonne, hydrangea has curled up leaves. I just cut them off. How do I prevent this from happening? it's much worse this year than last. So what we're doing for prevention is we're actually going to be spraying something called the Bacillus thuringiensis. And we're doing that when the leaves of the hydrangea pretty much just push out, because we want to capture that larvae before it curls the leaf. Why is that larvae curling the leaf? The reason why it curls the leaf is to protect it from birds eating them and to protect it so predators can't get them. So even if we were to use that BTK right now, that Bacillus thuringiensis right now, we wouldn't actually be able to control them because they're covered up. The pick is fantastic. Just remove them, boom, 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 discard them, put them in a bag, and that's the best way to control. But for prevention, we need to spray them as soon as the leaves fully open. That's when you need to do an application with that BT, which is known as Bacillus thuringiensis. We got Vicky. Don't be sorry, Vicky. Sorry to clarify, so I can take the pot of hydrangea and plant it in the ground. I was under the assumption that if it was in a pot, that it was an indoor hydrangea. No. Most of the hydrangea varieties that you have that are potted hydrangeas are actually the same varieties or similar varieties to the outdoor macrophylla, which are the large leaf hydrangeas. They will, if the variety that was selected by the grower for that potted hydrangea is hardy enough, and sometimes you'll have a tag in there that will tell you the variety. So depending upon where you live, look up your zone. If it's hardy for your zone, it will come back and should bloom on old wood. However, a lot of the hydrangeas that are marginally hardy, in my experience, the potted hydrangeas from indoors, when you plant them in your garden, they just come up and they're just leaves. They don't actually bloom. They don't actually go back to the bloom production. That potted hydrangea, if you want to keep it indoors and you want it to rebloom, what you would have to do, just let it grow, continue to grow. Then in the fall, what you're going to do is take it and put it in, if you had a cold cellar, you put it in your cold cellar so it'd be dark and cool, almost at that freezing mark, and you're going to leave it down there for a few months and then pull it back out, introduce it to light, and hopefully that would trigger it and bloom. It needs to go through a dormancy period in order for it to bloom. We got Joanne. Hi, Frankie. My solution for getting rid of dog strangle vines. Dog strangle vine is a pain in the rump, right? Big pain in the rump. Suggestion is, and I actually have it as well in my front garden area, and I have to keep on top of that thing. So what I've been doing is pulling it as frequently as I can and mulching on top, trying to suffocate it out. The other thing that I'm doing is planting that area a little bit thicker with some perennial plants so that I'm not giving it the space, the real estate for it to grow. So hand removal, mulching, and then trying to create that less space for it to actually have to grow. But constant removal of the foliage is key. That is super key. We got Tracy saying, OMG, I watched Sleepless in Seattle yesterday. Great movie, by the way, as well. Jen Ennens, you know what rain is? Rain is a chance for gardeners to get their housework done and watch movies. Boom, that's what rain is. Hi, Frankie. We were gifted a foxglove, which is digitalis, is the Latin name. Heard they're poisonous. Any suggestions? It's the seeds that are within them that are poisonous, not the plant itself. You can grow them. They're fantastic. They actually have a resistance to many insects and disease because of their toxins. As long as you don't have a curious dog or kid that likes to just randomly eat plants, you'll be completely fine. No problems whatsoever. Plant it in full sun. We got Karina, I think, or Corinne and Gordy. Hey, bud. Hi from Golden Lake. How you doing? Hope you're doing well. We got Tammy. Hi, Tammy. Is there a way to control ferns not taking over my garden? So that would be the perennial ostrich ferns. The only thing that you can do is try to put an edge around the area where they are to restrict them from growing. They do get very invasive. I got a goldfinch in my backyard right now. The goldfinch is in my backyard. It's on top of a peony bloom right now, and I can see him pecking away. And if you're wondering what he's probably pecking at some of the nectar that's there, but most likely as well, eating some of the ants that are on top of the peony. Just amazing. That's what's amazing. Like right now, I'm talking to you, but as I look through you and behind the camera, got a beautiful goldfinch, bright yellow, like beautiful, just pecking away at the top of my peony plant. And then behind it on the ground, I have a robin that's hanging out there as well. Gardening is amazing. I tell you, when you can actually watch nature, I got color. I got like yellow, and that's nature's color that's out there. Ferns, so the big thing about ferns is they do get aggressive if they're in a happy area. Edging around that garden bed where the ferns are, or even building a barrier. So even to prevent them from going other areas, even if you just dig your edge around and continue to have that edge there, that will help you out as well. We got our friends up there in Golden Lake, Corinne and Gordon. Are blue junipers and Nova Zelba Rhodo a good combo? Garden is full sun and hoping to shade the rhododendron slightly. So the blue juniper, which there are some, that would be the upright, I'm assuming that you're thinking about. There's many different varieties, like Mountain Batten is a prickly one, just a reminder of that. Spartan Blue would be probably your Spartan Blue juniper, which is your upright juniper. Pretty easy to grow. The only thing about the rhododendron zebla, I don't know Golden, so it was Golden Lake. So let me take a look here. Golden Lake. So just whereabouts is Golden Lake? So Golden Lake is just northwest of Ottawa. I'm just going to check out the hardiness zone of that rhododendron because I don't know what Zembla Nova zone. So it is a hardiness zone of 4 to 9. So it would be marginally hardy. It'll be hardy enough in there, but will perform great because it's at the lowest, right? It's 4 to 9. My experience, rhododendrons do suffer from a lot of moisture loss. So you would need to spray something like an antidesicant to retain the moisture in it in the fall. What I would recommend instead of that is a Northern Lights azalea. But because you're in full sun, why are you battling with that? Why are you not selecting something else? Maybe it's just the look that you really enjoy. Let's say that you were to select something like Fire and Ice hydrangea. You know, it's a hydrangea. The neat thing about Fire and Ice hydrangea is it blooms white, then goes pink, and then turns red. Way hardier, will perform really well in full sun. I'm just not confident that that rhododendron will do well for you. So it's up to you. You can try it, test it out. Just make sure you get a 1-year guarantee on it and keep your receipt. Michelle, or Michelin, how do you deal with violets that are spreading through your lawn? You got to just keep on bending over and digging them. There is no non-selected herbicide that will focus in the cosmetic pesticide ban on that perennial violet. That perennial violet, if you just let it go, will continue to go. So there's a couple things. Hand removal, and a reminder, always cut your lawn a little bit higher. Cutting your lawn higher will shade out some of the root systems and will shade out some of the plants, and then thickening your lawn up. Those are the only things. So you got to continue to hand remove and try to keep that foliage kicked back as much as possible, not to strengthen the root system. I'm still admiring my goldfinch. Right now he's on my cedar, and now he's flying on top of my Shasta daisy. And I guess he's just going for the nectar. That's exactly what that little guy's going for. So cool, so fun. Now he's flying over and just hanging out with my chives. Giving you a play-by-play of my goldfinch. If I get a chance. You know what I want to do is I want to get, and I would love some of your recommendations, and if you guys could send me some links as well. I want to get a bird feeder, some of the bird feeders that are Wi-Fi enabled that will actually link with my phone that will take pictures of the birds when they're at the feeder. That's what I want, because I want pictures of birds. Hello, Frankie. Something is eating my grape leaves. Can't see what it is. What can I spray on them? Thank you from Barrie, Ontario. So with the grape leaves, if you're inspecting them, big thing is to go out in the evening or early morning, just when the sun is rising. That's most likely when you're going to see that insect damage. We need to determine, it could even be a crawling insect. So if it's a crawling insect like a slug that's causing this damage, we would want to put something like diatomaceous earth around the base of the plant to prevent that chewing of the leaf of the grape leaf. If it's a beetle, then we may want to actually put a beetle trap far away from the grape plants, which has pheromones that will attract the beetles away from the grapes. So we need to identify. Sometimes I can tell by the chew marks on that grape. So you can always send me an email, frankie@frankieflowers.com, frankie@frankieflowers.com, and I will be there to help you. Jen Evans is saying thank you, and thank you to Jen as well. Pebbles. Hey, Pebbles. I'm wondering what ground cover grows in morning shade and afternoon sun. So there are several different ground covers that you can have. What I would really recommend for you is to look at mounding plants versus a ground cover. What's the purpose that you want it for in this area? We had a lot of people that really reached out and talked about their concerns over some of the ground covers that are sold at garden centers that become invasive plants that actually will grow. Examples of those are things like goutweed, bugleweed, Periwinkle, if planted in the wrong location, these are ones that we need to be very cautious with. So really, if you want to send me an email, frankie@frankieflowers.com, tell me or send me a picture of what you want, and then we can select a really good one for you that's out there. There are some things like even Solomon seal, which is really kind of a nice plant that's overall. Cranesbill, which is actually a perennial geranium, really quite nice. There's Walker's Blue, which is a type of catnip, which is quite nice as well. Sue, but just watch out where the walker's low. It's that guy there can get a little out of hand too. Happy Sunday, Frank. Thanks for your advice about the creeping time lawn. My client is going to do sod instead. Yeah, it's always about the right plant and the right place. And with this, which Sue sent me the photos and we took a look at it, and creeping time in that area just would struggle. And what would be happening is you'd be pulling more weeds and weeding than just how easy a lawn will be. So it's always the right plant for the right place. And that's the key. And for me, what I want, and just for everybody to know, my whole goal is to educate you about gardening and trying to make gardening a wonderful experience. I don't want you working too hard. I don't want you battling bugs. So I'm looking for disease, insect resistant plants. I'm looking for plants with long bloom periods, ones that actually grow and don't need a lot of winter protection, because who has the time to do that? So my whole idea is I'm trying to help you design a garden that's kind of survival of the fittest, that if planted will need minimal care, because no garden, if anybody out there ever says, I'm going to create a no maintenance garden for you, I say, you're lying, because plants are living things that do require maintenance and care. And if we maintain them the right way, you'll have goldfinches in your backyard, you'll have robins in your backyard, you'll have bunnies in your backyard. And as you hear, when I'm talking here doing my lives, I'm always looking at everything in my backyard. Okay, guys, we're at 31 minutes today, and my promise to you is always to be here for a half an hour. Just let you know, tomorrow morning I'll be jumping on a jet plane heading to Disney. I'm actually going to be checking out Disney World's horticultural program, so we're going to have some really interesting things on breakfast television this week. Stay in tune on my Facebook, on my Instagram, and on X as well. My two boys are going with me. We'll be back on Friday, so it's a short trip, Monday through Friday. I hope you guys all have a blooming good week. My mom and dad are going to come by and make sure my plants are good too. So don't worry, the garden's going to be fine. I'll see you later. Keep growing, keep blooming. And just a reminder, hey, them weeds are just undesirable plants. So if you desire it,